It's Social Pulse Weekly, brought to you by AgoraPulse. With special guest, Tamsen Webster. Discussing this week's hottest topics and latest developments in social media marketing. With your host, Jennifer Watson. Here's Social Pulse Weekly.
Hey guys, happy Friday. Thank you so much for joining us on Social Pulse Weekly, your all-in-one social media live show where we have an expert guest. You can ask all the questions you want. You get the latest social media news. We have a little fun trivia and all sorts of things. This is your hour to ask us whatever you want, and we have an amazing guest on our show today as well. And I am your host, Jennifer Watson, the social media manager of AgoraPulse. I'm so excited to be here. We also have a show sponsor today, which is Jen Cole from Wichita, Kansas. She works with Depict Media. She's actually the co-founder and co-owner of it. She's going to be helping answer some questions in the comments, but we want to know, how are you guys doing on this Friday? And where are you from? What do you do? A little side note for me, I have not had lunch yet. And so I was talking literally before the show that I was eating mega stuffed Oreos, and I still have another one here. So I want to know how you guys are getting through your Friday, how your week was, and let us know what your biggest achievement was as well, because we're here to cheer you on and to succeed. Now, I want to introduce my guest. She is amazing, Miss Tamsen Webster. And I've met her probably a couple of years ago. Tamsen and I actually need to talk about this exactly when we met each other, but I saw her recently at Content Marketing World in September in Cleveland. And you know, at Content Marketing World, they rate all their speakers, and the highest speakers actually, or the highest rating, gets asked back to be a keynote. And that's what happened to Tamsen. Everyone loved her so much out of all the speakers there that she got to keynote it, and she was absolutely amazing, so brilliant that I asked her to be on the show, and she said yes, even though she's been so incredibly busy. So a quick little tidbit here about Tamsen. She's a professional idea whisperer. She helps people find, build, and tell the stories of their ideas. Now, she's combined 20 years in brand and message strategy with 4 years as a TEDx Executive Producer to create the Red Thread, which is a simple way to change how people see and what they do as a result. Though she will tell you that she learned everything about people, speaking, and change when she was at Weight Watchers. And I'm so excited to hear her background story. But today, Tamsen is a globe-hopping keynote speaker, as I mentioned, who consults with enterprise companies like Verizon, Johnson & Johnson, and State Street Bank on how to get their big ideas to have the impact they deserve. And she's going to help all of you today with your big ideas, whether you have an idea or not, to make it even bigger and help you market it. So without further ado, Tamsen, welcome to the show.
Hello. Oh, I'm excited to be here.
Oh,
and you tell me I'm an AgoraPulse Orange, which I'm delighted to be.
I know. So Tamsen popped up. So we usually get on about 15 minutes beforehand, and Tamsen popped in with her AgoraPulse Orange. Like literally, that is the exact orange, and I'm in pink. So though at least I've got the heart and the chair behind me. So we're doing pretty good. And Tamsen, so I don't know, we want to hear how your Fridays and your weeks have been. My Fridays are usually so busy, I don't eat lunch. And so I, eat a bunch
of the mega stuffed Oreo, which
the
is
mega
awesome,
stuffed Oreos, yes.
Which it's so big. I was saying this to you before, but it's just funny. It makes it look like you're Alice in Wonderland that had something that shrunk. And so you're like super tiny, but eating a normal size Oreo. That's what it looks like to me.
Yeah, I think mega stuffed Oreos have like 3 times, maybe even 4 times the stuffing as a normal Oreo, but so the sugar is high. I'm really good right now. And Tamsen, you said you had lunch with a friend, and then you just came from a science fair.
I did. I came from my son's 6th grade science fair. So I want to hear from anybody else who saw dissected brains today, because that's what I just did.
I can't remember the last time I saw dissected brains. I think it was when I was in high school dissecting animals. Like, I think that's what it was.
I think that's the last time I remember it. But apparently they start them young these days. So yeah, my
Wait, how old is he?
He's 11.
He's 11? So this is middle school.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's like sixth grade though, right?
Yeah, sixth grade. Yeah, it was sixth grade. So they had STEM week this week. So, and this was their showcase of all the stuff they'd worked on. So between the dissected brains and and they had this little like plastic bag model of a drop of blood that had like pineapple jello in it. And I was like, that's the tastiest blood, apparently, just in time for Halloween.
Yeah, dissected brains. Oh my gosh. So we've got Ben with us. We've got Brian. We've got Juan, who's been waiting such a long time for this live. He's been like there watching us, waiting for us to go live for like 20 minutes.
Oh, thanks.
We've got Lisa Williams, who loves you, by the way. She's amazing. She works with us at Agora Pulse. She's seen you speak several different times, and she's like, "Oh my God, she's brilliant."
I know. Yeah, she's like, you know, original, like OG social from, you know, years ago.
Yeah, no, so she loves you. We've got Tim here. Tim, what's going on? We've got Rebecca Ward. Rebecca is amazing. Let's see. She joins us every week. She has her own agency, and she's not going to get any work done this week with the kids off, but she's glad it's Friday.
Yeah.
So which is yay. Oh my God, Rebecca's awesome. Rebecca's so wonderful. So thank you guys so much for joining us. And I'm going to start asking Tamsen questions. We have Tamsen until about 2:40, 2:45, and then she's got to run to her next thing. So if you have questions throughout my questions that I ask, let us know, comment there so we can ask them, because having Tamsen here for you guys is like incredible. So Tamsen, I want to get right to your amazing and incredible story. And you say you learned the most about inspiring change as a Weight Watchers leader. I want you to know, I think this is so cool though. I want to hear more about that and just your background in general and how you got to this point.
Oh, Lord. Well, the story on Weight Watchers is that 20 years ago, so this is my 20th anniversary of having maintained a 50-pound weight loss. So I know, woohoo, yay. But you know, it was just a product of kind of bad habits and not understanding kind of really how to eat. And so it happened that Weight Watchers the right match for me, but I wanted to give back. And so I became a Weight Watchers leader in addition to my full-time job. But truly, because my job there as a leader was sometimes up to 5 times a week for half an hour at a time, helping people kind of do something that their conscious brain really wanted to do, which was to change their behavior and lose weight, but their unconscious brain like really did not, because people really don't want to change. So it was really about what is it that people need to hear? What is it that causes that change to happen? Learning about how to articulate things to people in a way that light goes on. But it really, I would just take those lessons and I would kind of map them back what I was doing in my real job, kind of in branding and marketing for a bunch of different companies.
Oh, that's awesome. So I love that. And first of all, Brian was like, wow, 20 years. Like, that's incredible, Tamsen, because I'm eating the mega stuffed Oreos right now.
I would always say that there is mentally healthy food and physically healthy food, and we just keep those in balance and it's all good, because, you know, like mega stuffed Oreos exist for a reason, and that they taste good. So, and I wouldn't want a life without mega stuffed Oreos. And as I like to say, part of the reasons why I love talking about it is like, it was very important for me that I could lose weight with cake. And that was, cake is still a very important part of my life.
Oh my God. So a quick side note, it's a good thing that I work remote and not in kind of an office building, because where I used to work, it was like someone's birthday every day. Somehow everyone brought in cake, and it was just like, and I couldn't resist it. Even though like I tried to get a small sliver, I'd like go back for seconds, thirds. It was just, I don't know. I love cake.
It's all good stuff. It's good stuff. Yeah.
It's okay. I'm going to have a salad for dinner, so I'm going to even things out.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing with Weight Watchers was just realizing, really understanding, because what was interesting to me is that I unlike apparently a lot of marketers actually don't study marketing, but I did. Like I have a bachelor's in marketing, and I got my MBA in organizational behavior and management communications. So it's like, I've always been really interested in this, but then there's the theory of what's supposed to work, and then there's what actually works. And what Weight Watchers really taught me was not only what actually works in the moment, but what actually works over time. And so that really informed my own approach to marketing and brand strategy with companies, because it really was just this idea like, if something isn't going to work at the individual level, it will never work at the market level. which means we need to do a lot better job understanding how it is that that individual decision to act, that individual decision to change actually happens. And like I said, the marketing, Weight Watchers was my biggest teacher there.
Oh my God. And I can I love that, how that talking about change, and like, if you can't do a change, long term, like short-term fix is not going to do it. You want long-term success. And I think that's what every company is looking for. So,
right. I mean, because that's loyalty, right? And it reduces churn and all of that. I mean, I think we're super good about how do we get someone to like do a thing, but how do we have them keep doing it because they want to, not just because we think like, hey, we want you to. So it's a big shift.
Yeah. And I think like usually for me, if I want to start a new habit, I have to do it for like 2 weeks straight, like no like day where I don't do it, for me to actually start maintaining a good habit. And it's like, it turns into not having to force it or really think about it as much. It's natural.
Yes.
So
you know what the key to that is, and this is, so here's tips with Tamsen. The key to that is that I have found over and over again is the key is to make the changes in a way that doesn't invoke pain. You can take a change up to the point of discomfort, but the point it starts to create mental pain for you, you will not maintain it. So the example I often give is like, if you're somebody who like loves to drink like 3 Trenti Frappuccinos every day, to go from that to 0 is a painful change. Yeah. But if you go from 3 to 2, or from 3 Trentis to 3 Ventis, it may be like not awesome, but it's not painful. And so that's really where it is. And then you get to a point where that's normal. And then again, make an adjustment. But I mean, it's whether we're talking about food or whether we're talking about a change in thinking or behavior, like, companies are trying to do with their products and services, the same thing works. Like, people won't keep doing something that's too extreme, too painful from what they're doing or what they're thinking now.
And that makes sense. And it's funny because Brian Fanzo, I don't really know who this person is, but he's like, yes, driving change is easy, but driving consistent change takes process. Well said. Planning and true influence. So basically kind of echoing what you're saying right there, which is so true. And I think it's really hard for companies and brands to really initiate change, just because, a lot of times we're so busy, we're set in our, certain daily tasks and what we do, that doing a change seems to alter things. And we feel like, it makes things harder. But if we changed our mindset and realize it's going to help us in the long run, like, the whole mindset is a huge game, part of the game as well.
That's everything. Like I don't know that it was ever an official term, but I always approached how I thought about how I approach marketing as mindset-based marketing. Like, it was much less about like targets and segments, and much more about who am I talking to, where are they right now, and how do they see the world? Because what's important to understand about that is that how someone sees the world it drives what they do in it, right? And which means you can't change what someone does until you change how they see. And that means that we as marketers, or just humans trying to communicate with each other, like, we owe it to ourselves and to the people that we're talking and working with to really understand how do they see the world right now. Because whatever they're doing right now actually makes sense to them. And the more that we can understand that, the more that we can understand what is it that is making them continue to do it? What might be the levers to have them want to do something different? Where are the places where there's an opportunity for them to actually shift that mindset? And because they've changed how they see, they'll change what they do.
And yeah, gosh, I love that. I feel like everyone needs a motivational talk from you, Tamsen. Just like a logistics talk. Like, this is how it is, and this is what you need to do. And Jen Cole, she mentioned, oh yes, incremental goal setting could make a big difference and make the big picture change less daunting, which is very true. I feel like for me, a lot of times I'm just like, oh gosh, I want to do this, and this, and then everything seems so overwhelming. It almost paralyzes me sometimes. And I'm like, and then I don't do anything, rather than small incremental changes where it doesn't seem so drastic, kind of just like you're saying with the whole changing, with the latte sizes, rather than just stopping it completely. Right. Easing into something is so much easier. Like,
because it's like, the test that I always give to my Weight Watcher members, again, I'm not trying to always bring this back, but it's a useful test for anything really. But the thing that I would say to them is, whatever you're doing right now, whatever change you've just told yourself that you're going to make, like, I'm never going to eat bread again or whatever. I'm like, the question to ask yourself is, are you willing to make that change for the rest of your life?
No.
And if the answer is no, then don't do that. Like, it's just like, I mean, I've got a whole rant on how I think that willpower is like complete bupkis, because essentially what willpower is not want power. We're asking ourselves to like actively not want a thing that we want. And that's just insane as far as I'm concerned. And so the thing is, it's like, it's where we're trying to get to is a point where we are just thinking differently about these things, and not criticizing ourselves for the fact that we want the thing that we want, but understanding that it all comes down to how can we make those shifts in a way that's consistent with who we see ourselves to be right now. And sometimes that means anchoring on a different part of ourselves than we thought, but really it's just, I mean, you heard me say this at Content Marketing World. I mean, I think it can be super tempting for people to think that the best way to get someone to change is to try to change what they want and what they believe. But what I've just seen consistently, and this isn't just in Weight Watchers, this is in my work with TEDx and my work with brands from both client side and agency side. Ultimately it comes down to how is it that we can validate what somebody already wants and believes? How do we make the case for a change the way they would make it? Not the case that we want to make, but what's the case that they would make? What's the story that they will tell themselves and therefore other people about why an action or decision or a change, a product or a service is the right one, right? And to do that, you really have to understand, again, back to that mindset piece, how are they looking at the world right now?
And basically like putting yourself in their shoes, in their thought process, which, oh my gosh, I love. And you have so many fans. We have Ben, you do. Ben DeCastro spoke at a seminar last year that Tamsen was in Rhode Island. She is awesome.
Thanks, Ben.
Yeah, Tamsen, people love you. We've got Kurt Ziegler here. Kurt is an amazing woodworker, by the way.
Oh, cool.
If like a specific a project or anything made, he is the guy to go to. I can connect everyone with him if you guys want. So next I want to ask you, Tamsen, about your role as a TEDx Executive Producer. You coached experts, pioneers from around the world to build their red threads into ideas worth spreading. What were the top 2 ideas from your coaching so far that have been the most inspiring to you?
So that's like asking me to pick a favorite child.
This is what I'm trying to do right now, Tamsen. I'm asking the hard. No, but
thankfully I have 2 children, so I'd be like, I love them both. But with the speakers, it's it's a lot of recency bias too, because while I'm no longer the executive producer, I have rejoined TEDx Cambridge as the idea strategist. So what I'm doing now is working with those speakers on making sure that their ideas are strong enough to build on, they're strong enough to build those talks on, and that we're really pulling out where the power is in those ideas. And so I'm gonna defer to recency and say there's a couple that are really interesting because I saw a couple of them speak last night. One of them was talking about how we can solve environmental challenges like overfishing, et cetera, if we can start to approach them as behavioral problems and behavioral challenges, not just challenges that we can solve with regulations. That there's I just think that's fascinating. Of course, I love behavioral science. And so anything they're like, hey, we can, there's very specific steps we can take to stop people from slash and burn farming, for instance, or all of that. I think that's super interesting. And then we've got one coming up in November that I'm also really, really interested in, when there's a person from the ACLU who's talking about facial recognition, actually the dangers of facial recognition in a way that I haven't heard people talk about before. I mean, I think right now a lot of us think of like, hey, it's not too bad. I mean, isn't it protecting our safety? And they are like, like we are not even thinking about this like the way that we need to. So this is the thing. This is why I love the work that I do. It's like I am. If I ever had if I was like reborn as an animal, I always say it would be a magpie because I love to find what shines. Like magpies love shiny things. And that's how I feel like about any idea, because it's like I could find something in any idea that I'm like, oh my God, that's life-changing. And that's the fun part of it. So those are two recent ones, but I'm not going to say that those are favorites, but they're always super fascinating.
Oh my God. Well, so I love that. And I love that you deferred, you did it perfectly, deferred to recent. Like that was just perfect. Like and I shouldn't have asked for favorites, but like, but
Yeah.
I love that. And those are so fascinating. And really quick, Tim Larson joined us, and back to our earlier conversation really quick. I didn't see this comment. Roughly 10% of your life to force a new lifestyle on your body, or you spend roughly 10% of your life doing that, forcing a new lifestyle on your body. Tim, you're awesome. Tim is an amazing photographer. So if you need a photographer, go talk to him right now in the comments.
Awesome.
But so, okay, I want you to explain your talk was amazing about the red thread, but for people that don't understand or know what that is, can you explain the red thread to us and how you use it to build people's ideas into bigger ideas?
Sure. So I think the best way to think about it is, have you ever wondered where a brand actually comes from? Like, I mean, a lot of times companies talk about like how they want to be seen, or even people talk about how they want to be seen. But if we come back to that idea that, if a brand, my favorite definition of brand is that it's the sum total of people's experiences with you, whether you're a person or a company. Like, you can kind of figure out what you want your brand to be, but it really is a product of that interaction over time. But where does that come from? And so, we had talked a little bit earlier about like how you see what drives what you do. And so what I believe and what I've seen to be true is that it's kind of sitting beneath our brand is like a computer has an operating system, is kind of a set of factors that we use to see the world. And that's what I call the red thread, but it's what gives rise to everything else. It really is a way to think about like how to describe your worldview. Practically, the red thread is what connects a question to an answer and what makes it make sense. So the example I often give is, imagine, for instance, that we're going to play a game of Jeopardy. And I like to play this way because a lot of times an idea is an answer, right? Like it's like your answer to a question that you saw out there in the world and that your product or service typically answers, right? You're like, okay, I've got the answer. So if we're playing Jeopardy, to illustrate this problem, the answer is 42. Okay. And people are like, and depending on your context, right, you're going to have a couple different questions that could all be correct in Jeopardy land, right? It could be like, well, who is, Bill Clinton? If you're thinking it's it's presidents, you could be like, who is Jackie Robinson? If we're talking about retired baseball jersey numbers, it could be, if you're a Douglas Adams fan, like, what's the answer to life, universe, and everything. But you see, each of those question answer combinations is right?
Yes.
Until, right, you put the category in there, because it's only when you put a category in there that you actually know that combination is right. Now, I use that example because that's actually how our brains work. And what I see happen all the time is that, particularly in messaging, we're really good usually at identifying the solution, because that's usually our product or service or idea. And we're fairly good at identifying the problem, right? So that's kind of like question answer. But what we tend to leave out almost all the time is that thing that connects those two, like the category in Jeopardy, the thing that makes those things make sense. And that to me is what the red thread is. It really is a way to understand kind of your operating system as a person or as a company. It's your worldview that's connecting your question to your answer. It's kind of what drives everything that you do.
I love that. And I love how you call it the red thread, and kind of you've branded it, that way. And so explain to me a little bit how you help different companies build these big ideas, or if they even don't have an idea themselves, and kind of weave it through everything that makes sense across the entire company.
Well, the thing to understand, so the red thread, it can be helpful to understand actually where the name the red thread comes from. And I see that Brian Franzo is saying, could it be the orange thread today? Sure. But the story that is behind the red thread. So the red thread is a phrase that Northern Europeans tend to use a lot. Like it's just an idiom in Swedish, for instance, which is where I first heard it. And the root of it is actually the mythological story of Theseus of Athens and the Minotaur's labyrinth. And the red thread is the tool that he used to trace his path through that maze so he could kill the Minotaur and then importantly, get back out of it again. And so this tracing and retracing of the steps is essentially what I'm doing when I'm working with companies or brands or organizations on finding this. I mean, usually the ask from a company or a brand is something along the lines of, we need to tell a better story, or we know what our story is, but everyone's telling it differently, or and this is pretty common where like we just invested like all of this money in a new brand and like nobody's using it, like nobody knows how to talk about it. And so that's typically where I come in, because then what I'm doing is working with these companies or these organizations to kind of retrace the steps. Now, I said before that there's a connection between questions and answers, and that connection is actually, theorized and known. I mean, I'm not sure how to pronounce the last name, but Chris Argyris, he's passed now, but he was kind of the head of Monitor Consulting, and he was at Harvard Business School, and he created this theory of how we kind of make decisions is something called the ladder of inference. And basically, we take what from reality, we kind of select facts and we interpret them, and then we kind of decide which ones make sense. So we make conclusions about them, and those lead to beliefs, and those lead to action. So I worked for a company one time that simplified it as like know, believe, do. I think it's even more accurate to say that the process that our brains go through is understand, agree, act. And so what I'm doing with companies is saying, okay, let's start with a question from your customers that they have right now. What's a question that your audience is asking that your product or service is the answer to? So for instance, I was working with an independent school this past weekend, and the question that their audience is asking is like, how do I find the right school for my child, right? And obviously they're a school, so the answer is that school. And so the process I'm walking through is, okay, if that's the question, what's the organization's perspective on why that question is hard to answer right now? So I kind of take that audience question, that's what I call the goal. And then the next thing we're trying to figure out is what's what I call a problem of perspective. What is it that people aren't seeing that's getting in the way? Now, it's important to focus not on what they're not doing, because again, how we see drives what we do. So we actually have to figure out how is it that they're looking at a situation and that's kind of getting in their way. So for instance, let's say you've got a company that's really interested, where you've got, a potential client that's really interested in productivity. You could say, well, all right, the problem is perspective is, given what we sell, everyone's so focused on efficiency with productivity that they've kind of forgotten that just faster isn't always better, right? That haste makes waste, or that slow and steady wins the day. So we're trying to figure those pieces out. The third piece that we're trying to figure out is what's a core truth. So what is a truth that your audience will agree that makes that possible and problem impossible to ignore? What change does that lead to? And then what actions create that change? So the 5 pieces that I'm walking a company or organization through are goal, audience goal, problem, truth, change, action. And by the time we've kind of gotten through all of those, we've actually found the steps that move people from understand, agree, act. Those are the steps that our brains are filling in. And they are, because those steps are actually the structure of a story, we've at the same time also produced a really powerful way to talk about that idea.
So Tamsen, I'm just going to say, I feel like you've shared probably thousands of dollars worth of knowledge in like 10 minutes. Because I'm looking at people's comments. I've got I'm watching it on my phone. I have my computer. And I think everyone's in awe, and you've helped a lot of people, especially if they're an entrepreneur, their personal brand, or they're on a marketing team with a company and they're just not sure how to weave it all together. Yeah. And I want to give a quick shout out to Sarah Hecker, who joined us. We've got Evie in the house. And I think we've got Jeff C here too. And Jeff shared the stream. Thanks, Jeff. And so, oh, Michaela joined too. Michaela is amazing. She's actually in Atlanta here with me. It's all rainy here. It's kind of a very dreary day. But we want to know, I know, right? It's kind of like, it was really sunny yesterday and then the clouds moved in and the rain. But we want to know, what questions do you guys have for Tamsen? Because she's brilliant. She's amazing. She has to leave in about 15 minutes or less to go to her next kind of gig meeting. So we want to know from you what questions you have because she's incredible and she can help you. Even if you have a personal question about your brand, your company's brand, or just how to make things work together, she's here for you. But thank you guys so much for joining. And so, Tamsen, what is like the biggest mistake that companies, brands make? And they're just like, I don't understand why my big idea isn't working. People aren't getting it. What is the biggest mistake that people make that you're just like, you just need to do this and it's fine?
I think the biggest thing is understanding that that there's always something between the problem and the solution. And to understand kind of how that, the nature of that is, it's really helpful to understand the structure of stories, right? So the red thread is based on story structure, but it includes a piece that I haven't seen anybody else focus on, and that's the truth piece. So let me just explain that real quick. Every story starts with something that people want. That's the goal. Every story has a problem that the hero didn't know they had in the beginning. So that's the problem that I'm talking about. Then, and this is so key, like the emotional climax of any story is often called the moment of truth. And that is the point at which the hero of the story, hint, your clients, customers, or audiences, hears something or remember something that makes that problem and the world that they knew before impossible to go back to, or that problem impossible to ignore. So there's something that they hear that makes it, if they still want what they want, it makes it impossible for them to stand still mentally. So in other words, it forces the change, it forces a choice. And that's the piece that I see brands kind of skip over a lot. And so, one thing that could be helpful to your viewers and listeners and all of that is that, kind of an easy way to think through just the result of knowing what your red thread is, whether or not you can kind of fill in what I call the conversational case. And so this has been a new tool I've been playing with. But so I want you to think about it this way. You basically say, when I work with, let's say, message makers of all types, you're saying, when I work with, fill in the type of person that you're talking to. They often want to know then a common question that they ask that your product, service, or idea answers, so that they can, then you're inserting some kind of high level goal that they're looking for. So, people could say, I could say people want to know how they can talk about their idea more powerfully so that they can drive more actions, engagement, and conversion in their business, just for example. Now, next piece is, when looking for that answer, people often focus on, and then you kind of take, how are they seeing the problem right now? Where are they putting their energies right now, rather than on, or more than on, where you think they could be focusing more. So if I'm talking about ideas, I often frame it as, people tend to talk about the significance of their idea more than the structure of it. They focus much more on what makes their idea sexy, like its features and its benefits, rather than on what makes it strong. And then the next piece to fill in here, and this is the truth piece that a lot of people skip over. You said, yet I believe, and then you fill in that piece with kind of with something that your audience is likely to understand or agree with, just kind of on the surface of it. So I could say, for instance, that, but I believe, because our brains build our agreement, that ideas are built, not found. All right. And then you say, which is why my answer is to, and then you put in your recommended solution or approach. So then I say, which is why my answer is to build the story of your idea. Because if you build the story of your idea, you'll actually also find what makes your idea strong. So then you finish out that kind of conversational case. You say, which not only answers that question, it also, and you kind of give them some additional benefit or free prize. It also not only allows them to talk about their idea more powerfully, it actually gives their idea more power. So kind of fill that in. And I think it's just a way to kind of back people into the kind of making sure their idea has all the pieces that they need it to have.
So what I think everyone needs to do here, whether they listen to the replay or not, is, or if you're watching right now, re-listen to it and write it, like literally, I'm going to write down and kind of fill in the blanks with everything you're saying, Tamsen. And like, because it's brilliant. It's like a workbook. This is basically, you come into businesses and companies and do exactly what you're doing right now. You explain it out like this, and you make them take the time to do this. So you guys are basically getting a free workshop from Tamsen, so just, appreciate that. And thank you guys, everyone, so much who's joined us. The eCam Network said, well put, Tamsen. They think they're doing an amazing job. Brian loves that answer. And I know I asked you before about some of the favorite companies and brands that you've worked with, but what are some other brands that are just doing it well, that you're just like, wow, they get it. They're doing it amazingly well, where there's some that seem to struggle with it. And this is kind of oh, look at eCam Network. They're grabbing their pen. This is true. Oh my God. Whoever is behind the eCam Network, you're really funny. You're awesome.
Awesome.
But so are there any brands that, like, let's say we should look up to, or be like, wow, we see them doing this. And it's hard. So you have like that big idea, and then pushing that content and same idea out on all the social media channels is like, how do you do that? So is there a brand that you're finding is doing that really well?
So unsurprisingly, for people who know me, I actually think a brand that is doing it really well is a fashion brand of Diane von Furstenberg. I mean, they have typically over the 10 years been really, really early adopters of certain platforms. But what I really like about what they do is that they've managed to figure out a way to kind of scale the story of their founder, Diane von Furstenberg. I mean, they've kind of walked away from their red thread a couple times in the last decade, but it's kind of nice to see them. They kind of come back to it about what they're really about. So it's what I recommend is just look at what they do across all of their platforms, because they're very active with how the founder herself represents on, let's say, Instagram, but the brand itself has its own view. They do really interesting things with how they tie in just other elements. And it's just that's always what I love to see, is how do all the pieces come together? And I don't think you can really understand how to create a message strategy or a brand strategy like that if you actually don't understand all those component pieces of the worldview, because it isn't just a tagline. There's a reason why the tagline is a tagline. It's kind of like, the example I give is a lot of times people try to go straight for a positioning statement or straight for a tagline. And then they struggle with, how do I talk about that day to day? They struggle with what the content should be. They struggle with what they should put on social. And the way I think about it is, it's like, if you ever taken like a low res image and then like tried to blow it up and it looked like crap, right? And it looks like crap because there's not enough detail. There's not enough data, literally not enough data in that small image to make it work at a large scale. And that's what happens if you try to go straight for this kind of like one line or kind of snappy tagline without really understanding the entire story of what the brand is. Because once you know that, you can shrink it back down, right? You can't write the one line description of a movie until you know the whole story to begin with. So the first brand that comes to mind is actually I love DVF. Always. I mean, you can't see it, but like right past that stack of books is a DVF Barbie that my friend Neen gave me. Love it. But it's a great brand that I see again, across platforms and across channels, taken all together. There's a very clear story. But it's very rare that you hear them parroting something like they're just like, this is our brand, So that's a place to look, I'd say.
And I love how you talked about, just use the analogy of a low res photo and blowing it up large and expecting it to still look good, and it doesn't, because there isn't enough data behind it, which is perfect. And when you explain it that way, it makes a lot of sense. And the eCam Network, whoever this is just amazing. He or she says it's always great seeing the leaders of a company having their own voice online that feeds into our works alongside the brand itself, which I think is so true, because people love to know like who's behind the scenes and the founders of it. And like the founders of Agorapulse, they do this really well. They speak at conferences, but I think it humanizes your brand too, because it's fascinating. People can relate to your brand even more in your story. And they're just like, oh, wow. Like, and they appreciate what you've done and the problems you've solved with your product or service that much more. So I love everything about that. And guys, we are running out of time. We have Kathy Nolan, who just joined us. Kathy, oh my God, DVF has her own Barbie. Had no idea, but she does. This is true. Oh, it's Katie from the eCam Network. Katie, you're awesome. And Jen saying hi to Katie. So, all right, guys, I have one more question for Tamsen. Then she's got to go. But if you guys have a question, quick, pop it in here so we can ask her. But Tamsen, before we go today, what advice do you have for marketers, social media managers that are like, okay, we're in the middle of Q4, we're looking ahead to big ideas and big things in 2020. What shouldn't we forget, or what's the best advice that you would give someone? And let's say like it's someone that comes up to you at a conference after you've spoken and they're just like, Tamsen, I don't know what to do. Help.
I'd say that the biggest thing that I would see, because it's the thing that I see all the time, is that I would say stop trying to create a one size fits all message. You can't. I mean, you're the story, the core, the red thread of your company, like that stays pretty true. But in the words of Agatha Christie, I love this quote. She says that words are the outer clothing of ideas. And you can't ever really see your red thread. You can't ever really see the idea that's underneath it all. But whenever you put a message around it, like that's how you give shape to it. And so what I would say to people, social media managers and community managers and all the content creators that are out there, the message is actually what happens at the intersection between the idea, which is your red thread, the outcome, which is what is it that you're trying to have happen, both for you and a particular audience, and the audience, meaning we have to figure out what is it, how are we going to dress up? How are we going to give words to that idea for that audience so that they accomplishes that outcome? I think if we just, even on the back of a napkin or a quick notepad, before you write anything down, you just figure out those three things. What do we want this to do? Who is it for? And then start that process of saying, okay, well, if that's who it's for and that's what we want it to do, what question are they asking right now? And then from there, you can go in and fill the rest of it. And you're going to really start to give shape to that idea. But no more one size fits all messaging. You've got to tailor it for the people that you're talking to and the outcome that you want from them.
Tamsen, I think everyone just loves you and has fallen in love with your ideas, the red thread and everything. It's incredible. And Michaela says that she loves your answer about Diane von Furstenberg. I'm not totally okay. Yay! I didn't want to actually say her full name, so
yeah, that's why it's DVF. Yeah,
I know, DVF. For being able to spread the founder story at scale and being consistent in telling the story across all networks, it's really hard to do. And then she said, "I'm going to go now and do some research." And so am I. I'm literally like, as soon as this live ends, I think everyone's going to be like, "Oh my God, what are they doing that we're not doing?" And learn from that. Yeah. Tamsen, I just want to say thank you so much for joining us. And for everyone else that's with us, where it's not over. Tamsen has to leave, but we're going to talk about some of the latest social media news. Again, we have a fun Agora Pulse mug or t-shirt giveaway, your choice.
It's Agora Pulse orange.
Or Tamsen, she's already repping the orange. Like she's got it. I mean, she got the memo today and I didn't, the pink. I'm not sure. Well, I already wore a lot of my orange. I don't want to repeat it, but maybe I should. I wore an Agora Pulse shirt today. But so stay with us, but we're going to have to let Tamsen go. Tamsen, before you do go, where can people reach you, see you? And what if they're like, oh my God, we need Tamsen to come speak to us, or our company? How can they do all of that?
So the center of all things Tamsen is TamsenWebster.com. I am literally the only Tamsen Webster in the universe. So thanks, Mom and Dad. So that's a great place to go to kind of find that. I think if you want to see me in person, I've got 2 more public gigs this year. I'm going to be at Internet Summit in Raleigh in November and Digital Summit in Dallas. And at both of those, I'm doing a day-long workshop on how to use the red thread to build content. So just as if you want to kind of really see how to do it, how to build content from it, and you're anywhere near Raleigh or Dallas, come to those. And the last thing is, if you want to, if you didn't write it down fast enough, that conversational case I mentioned, I wrote a blog post on that a couple weeks ago. So if you go to tamsenwebster.com/content, it's like the third post down, and you'll see it. It says how to draft the conversational case for your idea. And I hope that everyone finds that useful.
Oh my gosh, Tamsen, thank you. And Rebecca, Jen Cole, Ecamm, Katie with Ecamm, they've all said thank you so much. Like, Tamsen, I think you've really altered the way that people kind of think about ideas, brainstorming and bringing it all together, and now understand why some of their ideas haven't worked in the past.
Awesome.
So,
well, thanks. I hope so. I mean, it's just like all ideas, I came up with the red thread to solve a problem I had. So I hope it helps people solve problems that they've got too.
Well, that's awesome. Well, Tamsen, I will see you in Raleigh.
Yes.
I'm going to try and come to your session as well. So yay. Well, thank you so much. And everyone say goodbye to Tamsen.
Bye.
I'm going to take over with a little fun trivia. So, hey guys, it's Friday. It's 2:45 in the afternoon. How is everyone feeling? I have to know how everyone's feeling. How are you getting through the day? I have my mega stuffed Oreos. I've got literally it's open right here to the right of my computer. You can check out my stories while I was eating it with my producer, Mike. But we're going to have a little fun giveaway here. This is what we typically do for our trivia. And I'm going to give you these 2 questions. And while we're doing that, I'm going to talk about a new free tool we have to help you guys at Agorapulse. But true or false, this is the first one. Email subject lines without emojis had a 2.3% higher click-through rate. So did email subject lines without emojis have a higher click-through rate or a lower click-through rate? That's the true or false right there. And when you answer this in the comments, say the answer to question 1. So we know that you're saying true or false to, the first one and not the second one, because they're both true and false today. We're trying to make it super easy for you guys. It's a Friday, you're tired. It's the Friday before Halloween. A lot of people getting ready, with their Halloween costumes, Halloween parties. And the second true or false question is engagement was almost 24% higher on Facebook posts with emojis. So this is kind of an emoji trivia time we're having here. So true or false, engagement was 24% higher on Facebook posts with emojis. So again, when you answer these, respond with like answer to question 1, question 2 with true or false, so we know. And if you get both of these right, you're in the running to get an Agorapulse mug or a t-shirt, and it's your choice. So you get to join the awesome Agorapulse family. And now we're going to talk about Easy Advocacy, which is a free tool that we just launched. We're really, really excited about. And if you haven't tried it already, you should. You go easy-advocacy.com. And this is a way to leverage your employees, the people that already work for you. So let's say you're the social media manager of a big corporation or a big company, and you want to help people, your coworkers spread the word on something. Easy Advocacy allows you to do that in a super easy, simple way. And it's free, which is even more amazing. So you can do a quick campaign setup. This is one of the options where you can run an organized full-fledged advocacy campaign in fewer than 10 minutes. You just enter the emails on your distribution list, copy the URL of what you want to share, and add a description, and then you click send. And it makes sharing super easy, especially sharing content. So let's say if you're not going to do a campaign, but you want to share content, your employees will find everything they need to share in one location. Your message can be spread to Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Pinterest, or via email. And you're going to be able to know how far your content is reached. Immediately see which campaigns are working and getting the most clicks and visitors and which aren't. So this is an awesome, fun, free tool. And especially with the holidays coming up, and a lot of people have big marketing campaigns and initiatives, test out our free tool and see if it helps. We create these free tools for you because we want to see you succeed. And we saw that there is a need for it. So try it out. Let us know what you think. And, hopefully you'll find some big success to that. And I'm going to look here too. Oh, look at you guys answering true, true, true. Brian said false. Wow, you guys are amazing and awesome. Wow. So I'll look at you. Oh, we've got Dana Haynes too. Thank you so much for joining us. Yay. This is so awesome. Tim. Wow. We've got the whole gang here. You guys are amazing. I want to know what you're eating though to survive this afternoon. I want to know what snacks you guys are eating because I'm on like an Oreo cookie, like kick right now. Okay. So the next thing I want to talk about is some news, some social media news. So is anybody, and I want to know if you're watching right now, does anybody use IGTV, on IGTV, creates videos for it? Let me know. I want to know this because I think this is pretty awesome. So Instagram is adding IGTV series option to categorize videos, which I think it's huge because those, when you're creating videos on IGTV, it's just kind of, there's no organized fashion about it at all whatsoever. It's very chaotic and it can be, people might get lost and just not want to watch your videos. But what's so awesome about the series option is that the series gets a dedicated label. And on top of that, along with an on-screen tab, which viewers can tap to get notifications of new episodes in that series, which is huge. So if you've been like, no, I don't think IGTV is really, a thing, or, it's not really doing much for me, before you completely stop using it, or if you haven't used it, this may be some motivation to start using it, test out the series option and the fact that people can get notifications with a new episode on that series. I think this is kind of really huge, especially when talking about episodic content or, a series where you're only going to do, a certain amount of videos, like 10 videos on a certain subject and move on to the next one. I think this is something big and huge. And Brian Fanzo, his FOMO fan series, he set it up for IGTV. Rebecca says it's 8:00 here in the UK, so she's just munching on chocolate for the rest of the evening. Rebecca, is it dark chocolate or is it milk chocolate? I'm a dark chocolate fan. Brian knows that I wake up every morning and literally have 4 dark chocolate Hershey Kisses. That's literally what I do with my coffee. And actually, dark chocolate is really good when you wake up in the morning to get your brain and like all that flowing. I read it somewhere on a medical paper, so I think it's true. But I love you guys. You guys are so awesome. Okay, so the next thing is, who is big on Pinterest? Like just going on there or pinning themselves. I want to know who out there is big on Pinterest. And you've probably noticed the new pin format, which is going to be very useful, especially for the holiday season, because everyone, even I don't use Pinterest as much for myself personally, unless it's a birthday party, the holidays. I want to create something, and usually around the holidays, people are creating things. So you'll find with this new layout that the save and send buttons, like everything that's typically on the top, is on the bottom, and the pin itself is larger. So it kind of gives more focus to that image and is going to make it a lot easier kind of for people to see the content and the pins that you have. So I think this is really cool. And also last month, they updated their business profile format. So you've probably noticed that as well. But so if you're a Pinterest user, fan, anything like that, you're going to notice those changes. And I think those are really positive changes all across the board for the users and the people that are doing the posting as well. And Rebecca, thank you so much for joining us. Kathy, yes, she said you should use Pinterest more often. Kathy, I think, so Kathy Nolan creates caricatures. If you need caricatures for your business, a conference, an event, talk to her. She's amazing. But Kathy, I think your caricatures need to be on Pinterest. So just think about that. Oh, Michaela, you have chocolate in the afternoon and evening and sometimes at night. I munch on chocolate all day long. I feel like Brian's team milk chocolate. I feel like, I don't know, chocolate should be a food group. And especially dark chocolate. So dark chocolate's healthier than milk chocolate, but yeah, I love dark chocolate. And Kathy, dark chocolate is the best. It is so the best. And Jen is drinking a chocolate-ish, sort of chocolatey beer. I'm interested to see what that is like. Usually the thicker, heavier beers are like I don't know. They don't make my stomach feel good. They're kind of really filling. But I love you guys. You guys are so fun. I love anything chocolate related. Chocolate cake. Usually my default is dark chocolate, but like Oreos, I kind of need the sugar and the sweetness today too. Okay, guys, we have one last thing, and then we're done for this week. So we are going to go to our next biggest thing of news, which is if you consume news. And I actually want to ask this question. Do any of you actually consume news on Facebook, like the world news, local news? Do you actually consume news on Facebook? Because they're testing their new kind of journalism section, a limited test in the US. Facebook is doing this. And so basically what's going to happen is they have a team of journalists that's going to kind of figure out what the national news, the biggest stories in the nation are, and they're going to put that in that section. And it's in the top story section. And then on top of that, the algorithm is also going to learn what articles you like and don't like, and you can ignore different articles as well. But the algorithm is going to feed you more of the articles, news type articles that you like. So it's going to be human and algorithmic fed. So the human side of it is they're going to be journalists that actually decide what the top stories are, the top national stories. And then the algorithmic section is going to be basically the stories that you find interesting. They're going to feed you similar stories like that. So I think this is interesting. I don't use, I don't know about you guys, but I don't use Facebook really for news. It's kind of silly. I actually still watch local news sometimes. I watch the Weather Channel also for my weather news. But yeah, Facebook hasn't been a place where I consume news. So I don't know if this is going to be turned into a big deal or not. I love Jen Cole. Jen, you're awesome. And then Kathy agreed. Yeah. So I'm interested to see if this becomes a thing. And we'll find out probably after this limited test that they're doing just in the US, they'll find out if it's a go or no go. I think it's 50-50 whether they keep it or not. But other than that, yay, the Weather Channel. Tim says, I do not appreciate Facebook algorithms showing me news that it thinks it wants me to see. Tim, I'm with you. I kind of just want to see what I want to see, or I just want to see what's going on rather than like, no, we think you're more this way. Tim, I'm not an algorithm fan. I don't know if anyone really is. There may be a couple out there, but I'm team no algorithm, hashtag. But anyways, I love all you guys. I wish we were all in the same room together with Mike Alton, who unfortunately we won't be able to hear his voice, but he's producing behind the scenes, and the amazing Jen Cole, which is our show sponsor this week. So she has been driving the conversation. She has, again, her own agency company, Depict Media in Wichita, Kansas. If you need anything when it's related to even photography, and also Tim Larson is a photographer as well, anything related to photography in or around the Wichita area or social media marketing, anything you could dream of, they can do it. Both Jen and Tim, they're incredible and amazing. So Jen, thank you for being the show sponsor. And you guys, we have actually a bye week this next week, kind of like football. By the way, go Bills, Buffalo Bills. If you like football teams, American football teams, because I know we're all over the world. But coming up next is the amazing and incredible Sarah Evans. She is going to blow your mind when it comes to PR, marketing, anything you could dream of. She's worked with a lot of big celebrities. We're going to get the tips and tricks from her to help make your campaigns, your marketing campaign, social media, everything that much better. And she's probably going to give you some ideas that are going to inspire you too. So Sarah Evans is next week. Thanks to everyone who joined the show on this Friday. Yay! It's Friday. It's a rainy one in here in Atlanta, but hopefully it's bright and sunny where you live. Or if it's, it's not, at least it's bright and sunny and not cold. Here it's kind of like a little bit warm. But anyway, I love you guys. You guys are amazing. Thank you, Mike, for being an amazing producer. And we will see you all in 2 weeks. Bye, guys.